The laughter started before he even sat down. Not the kind of laughter that fills a room with warmth. It was a sharp, whispering kind. The kind people try to hide behind coffee mugs and computer screens. Armin Malik noticed it immediately the moment he stepped into the bright, glass-walled office cafeteria that sunny Tuesday morning. The sunlight poured through the windows, turning the polished floor into a mirror of gold. But the atmosphere felt strangely tense. His co-workers were huddled together at a table, exchanging glances and suppressing grins like children hiding a secret. Armin had worked at the company for nearly 2 years. Quiet, hardworking, and polite, he had always kept to himself. Most people knew him as the calm programmer who arrived early, worked late, and rarely joined the office gossip. But that morning, something was different. When his colleague Ferris waved him over with exaggerated excitement, Armin felt the uneasy sense that he was walking into something he didn't understand. They told him they had arranged a blind lunch meeting for him with someone new in the building. At first, Armin resisted. He wasn't interested in office jokes or matchmaking games. But the group insisted with such enthusiasm that refusing seemed rude. They pointed toward a table near the window where a young woman sat quietly with a notebook and a cup of tea. Sunlight brushed across her dark hair, and her calm expression seemed untouched by the strange energy in the room. What Armin didn't know was that this entire situation had been planned as a joke. The co-workers knew something he didn't. The woman, Samira Kadir, was deaf. Their cruel plan was simple. They expected Armin to stumble through an awkward conversation, realize she couldn't hear him, and walk away embarrassed while they laughed about it later. But life has a strange way of turning jokes into lessons. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness and second chances still exist in this world, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Heartfelt Stories. Your support helps these meaningful stories reach more hearts. Armin picked up his tray and walked slowly toward the table. Samira looked up when she sensed someone approaching. Her eyes were gentle but observant, the kind of eyes that seemed to read the world carefully. Armin noticed something immediately. There was no awkwardness in her posture, no nervousness about sitting alone. She seemed comfortable in her silence, as if she had built a peaceful world around it. He sat down across from her. For a brief moment, neither of them moved. The cafeteria noise buzzed around them like distant waves. Plates clattering, chairs scraping, co-workers whispering while pretending not to watch. Then something unexpected happened. Armin raised his hands and began speaking in sign language. His movements were careful but confident, his fingers shaping words in the air with quiet grace. He greeted her politely, introduced himself, and asked if he could join her for lunch. Samira froze. Her eyes widened with disbelief, and for a second it seemed as though the world had paused between them. She quickly set down her tea and responded in sign language, her hands moving with natural fluency. Across the cafeteria, the group of co-workers stopped laughing. The joke had just collapsed. What none of them knew was that Armin had spent most of his childhood communicating this way. His younger sister had been born deaf, and growing up, their home had been filled with silent conversations, expressive hands, and the unspoken understanding that language wasn't limited to sound. After she passed away during his teenage years, Armin continued using sign language occasionally, almost like a quiet tribute to the bond they had shared. To him, communicating with Samira felt completely normal. But to Samira, it meant something much deeper. Most people spoke to her slowly, loudly, or with exaggerated gestures, as if deafness meant misunderstanding the world. Very few people took the time to actually learn her language. Seeing someone sit down and greet her properly, without confusion, without awkwardness, felt almost unreal. Their conversation began simply. They talked about work, about the company, about the city outside the windows where traffic moved like a slow river of steel and sunlight. The more they spoke, the more relaxed they became. Samira's smile appeared often, lighting her face in a way that made the busy cafeteria seem to fade away. Across the room, the co-workers who had planned the prank were now staring in stunned silence. The awkward moment they had expected never came. Instead, something beautiful was unfolding. Over the next weeks, Armin and Samira began having lunch together regularly. Their conversations flowed naturally, and the cafeteria table by the window became a quiet meeting place where two people from different worlds discovered how similar They truly were. Samira shared stories about growing up in a world built for sound. She explained how exhausting it could be to constantly read lips, interpret expressions, and guess at conversations happening around her. Yet she also described the beauty of silence, the way she could notice small details others missed, the movement of clouds, the rhythm of footsteps, the subtle language of faces. Armin listened with deep respect. In return, he shared memories of his sister and how learning sign language had shaped his understanding of communication. He explained that losing her had left a silence in his life that never fully disappeared. For the first time in years, speaking with Samira felt like reconnecting with that part of himself. One afternoon, something happened that changed everything. A group of employees began whispering loudly nearby, unaware that Samira could easily read their lips. They joked about the original prank, laughing about how they had expected Armin to embarrass himself. Samira saw every word. The hurt in her expression was subtle but unmistakable. Her hands slowed, and the warmth in her smile faded slightly. Armin noticed immediately. He asked what was wrong, and after a moment of hesitation, she explained. For a long moment, Armin didn't respond. Then he turned in his chair and looked directly at the coworkers. He didn't shout. He didn't create a dramatic scene. Instead, he calmly stood up, walked over to their table, and told them that kindness should never be used as entertainment. His voice was steady, but the message carried weight that silenced the entire group. When he returned to Samira's table, something in her eyes had changed. Respect had turned into trust. From that day forward, their friendship deepened. They began walking together during lunch breaks to the nearby park where sunlight filtered through tall trees and birds traced circles in the sky. In those quiet paths, they shared thoughts about dreams, fears, and the strange ways life brings people together. What had started as a cruel joke had transformed into a connection neither of them expected. Months later, the same cafeteria that once echoed with mocking laughter witnessed a different scene. Armin and Samira sat at the window table again, but this time many co-workers approached them, not to laugh, but to apologize. The story of what had happened had quietly spread through the company, and people had begun realizing how thoughtless the original prank had been. Something remarkable had happened. By simply choosing kindness instead of anger, Armin had changed the atmosphere of the entire workplace. Samira had changed something too. Through her patience, confidence, and quiet strength, she showed everyone that silence could carry more dignity than noise. And as the golden afternoon sunlight filled the room once again, the two of them continued their conversation in sign language, their hands moving like a graceful dance of words that didn't need sound to be understood. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Heartfelt Stories so we can continue bringing meaningful stories like this to life.